Okay, great. Welcome everybody to our 2022 OSEP Leadership and Project Directors Conference presentation. My name is Dr. Michael Hebert. I'm an associate professor at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Project Words. Project Words is workshops on reading development strategies. It's a reading professional development project for pandemic recovery. We're trying to improve reading skills for kids who may have fallen behind during the pandemic. And I'm going to connect it with our OSEP leadership grants that are designed to train our doctoral students in how to conduct strong research and train the next generation of special education teachers. I'm going to have my co-presenters introduce themselves. They're my students and co-presenters. Kristen, would you start us off?
My name is Kristen Job. I'm a doctoral student and OSEP scholar.
My name is George Toman. I'll be entering my third year as a doc student, and I'm also one of the OSEP scholars.
And I'm Heidi Hines. I'm a doctoral student at UNL and finishing my first year.
Okay, so this is the disclaimer that the contents of this presentation were developed by the presenters for this conference. However, the contents do not represent the policy of the Department of Ed, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. And that goes for both, our discussion of our, OSEP project and the leadership grant that we're talking about. And then we're also going to be talking about our, Institute of Education Sciences grant for the Words project. And so the disclaimer should cover both of those things, just to be clear. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview to start. The goals of this presentation are that we're going to provide an overview of the doctoral training and the purpose of our OSEP grants. Most OSEP grants are pretty similar. The goal is to train the next generation of leaders in special education. And so we're going to do that, but we have some unique aspects to our training that we would like to sort of share and provide a little context for the kinds of work that we're doing. And then the second goal is we're going to discuss how our Words project helps to enhance that training for students and where exactly that fits into the training. And it doesn't and I also want to say that the Words project isn't something that all of our students are working on. It's really meant to be an example of one of the types of projects that we have our students work on. And then finally, our third goal is to provide an overview of our doctoral students' experiences on the project. And I'm going to have them sort of talk to you about some of those experiences and how it's helping them, to integrate some of the skills that they're learning. All right, so we have two OSEP we have two related OSEP grants at UNL. One is a leadership grant it's going into its third year. And as George and Kristen mentioned, they are in their third year of going into their third year of their training. And then we have a new grant that is a collaboration with two other universities, the University of Tennessee and Texas A&M University. And with UNL, we're all working on a very similar approach, which is, related to sort of our first grant. And so, as I mentioned, the purpose of these grants is to address the shortage of leadership personnel in special education. And in our particular case, we have a focus on a few competencies, and one competency in particular is designing academic interventions for students with special needs. A lot of programs focus on testing the effectiveness of interventions or intensifying existing interventions. And our program is focused on training our students how to design and implement academic interventions for students with special needs. And it could be a variety of students with special needs. So this could be students with learning disabilities, students with visual impairments, students with behavioral and emotional disabilities, students with hearing impairments, et cetera. And we have students who are working with a variety of different populations in that way. The second competency is that we, of course, like many other leadership programs, train our students in how to examine the efficacy and effectiveness of those interventions using state-of-the-art research methodology. Our unique sort of spin on this is that we focus especially in rural contexts. Nebraska has, it's a land grant university, and we have a lot of rural schools. And so our focus is to, how to provide these interventions in those rural contexts where maybe the schools may not have as many personnel to implement interventions. They may not have as many resources or access to things like professional development opportunities. And so our focus is on those rural contexts. And then lastly, college teaching. We broaden our sense of college teaching in our program. Of course, we're helping our students learn to train the next generation of teachers. But then also we've got a focus where we're doing professional development for in-service teachers who may need to learn the new state-of-the-art, techniques for working with students that we learn to be effective over time. This slide, for those folks who may have visual impairments, I'll describe it for you. There's a figure. The figure is meant to represent our conceptual framework for the development and integration of scholar knowledge and skills. It looks similar to a pyramid. At the bottom of our pyramid, we have knowledge development coursework. So our students will start off in the first 2 years of their program, really focused on taking coursework to build their knowledge in a variety of areas, including effective methodologies, so statistics, research design courses, things like that. And then also academic intervention design. So academic content classes like reading, writing, mathematics courses, so that our students can really understand the academic content they need to develop interventions. And then we also have intervention design and independent studies that help the students also sort of really get the skills or knowledge that they need in order to design the interventions that are needed for our students with special needs. And then finally, college teaching. We have a course in that. So really, we start off the first couple of years with knowledge development. The second level of our pyramid, then there's an arrow sort of moving upward to that, where we move into a phase called collaborative and supported integration, where we really try to train our students to integrate their knowledge. So integrate their knowledge of academic content, intervention design, and research into sort of these skills that they can use together and collaborate with others in using. And so we do this a variety of ways where we may have teaching assistantships where our students will work alongside faculty member to train pre-service teachers. We have internships with, we have specifically an internship with the Nebraska Department of Education where our students will create content for in-service teachers. We provide supervision experiences for student teachers, so our students will get some experience doing those things. And then, of course, research assistantships, where our students will work on research projects to gain an understanding of how to test those interventions. We also have an intervention design studio where students will learn to develop their own interventions. So that's the phase that we're going to mainly talk about. But then we move on to the last. George, can you go back one slide? We move on to the last, the top part of our pyramid, which is the independent integration of those skills, where our students will conduct their own dissertation and be the course instructor for their own courses, where they really will independently implement and integrate those skills so that we move toward independence, and then they will go out and be leaders who train those next generation of teachers. And then go ahead and advance the slide, George. Thank you. And so as I was sort of saying is that we are going to focus on that collaborative and supported integration piece today. The example that we're going to provide is we're going to show the WORDS project and discuss how that project is designed to help our students. Really, it's designed to help existing teachers and help our students with special needs in actual schools, right? And so we're collaborating, but then we have our students work on projects like this in order to have experiences integrating their skills, in their program. All right, so, I've mentioned Project WORDS, and so what is Project WORDS? And well, WORDS is an acronym. It stands for Workshops on Reading Development Strategies. And the purpose of WORDS is to really improve instruction in reading for children in grades K to 3 by focusing on professional development for teachers. It didn't necessarily start out as a COVID-19 pandemic recovery type of a project, but has since evolved into that. We found that is a really effective approach for providing PD to teachers, and it's necessary more than ever now that we've had students falling behind in their reading due to the pandemic. So we have a number of activities that are involved in the WORDS project. We do what is called practice-based professional development for teachers and schools. And what we mean by that is it's not a one-off workshop for teachers. Instead, we provide an early workshop for teachers, but then we provide coaching and ongoing support for teachers throughout the school year. We provide follow-up workshops periodically through the school year to really help teachers implement some of the recommendations that we make, rather than just sort of giving them a packaged packaged product and then saying, here are our recommendations, go ahead and implement that. We find that is not really very, very practical. So we do this practice-based professional development piece. Another component is that we also offer tutoring for students with reading difficulties after school. So we do before or after school tutoring. And this provides a service for schools in a couple of ways. One is that it provides those students extra reading instruction, right? So especially these students who are falling behind due to the pandemic or falling behind for other reasons. One of the key things that we really need to do, key elements, is to give them more instruction, give them more intensive instruction, more time working with the content. And so providing this tutoring does that for these students. In addition, it allows the teachers more time to practice teaching those foundational reading skills. So especially implementing the recommendations that we make in the program. So as they are providing interventions for kids, of course, they have their core programs that they're doing in their school day. They also will do tier 2 instruction if they are using multi-tiered systems of support, which we really recommend. And now they have an additional opportunity to practice those really strong evidence-based instructional procedures with small groups of students who really need their help. So it really has that targeted, mutually beneficial sort of focus to it. The next activity that we provide in the WORDS program is leadership training. So what we'll do is identify specific teachers in the schools who may have expertise in reading. We want this to be a sustainable project. So one of the things that we know is that as we provide professional development to teachers, well, sometimes there's turnover in schools. Sometimes, especially in rural schools, we may have school teachers who leave the profession, and then we might get brand new teachers in who have very little experience. And so with that turnover, we sort of sometimes lose momentum in the types of effective instruction that we really want these schools to provide. So what we're doing is trying to identify leaders in the schools who can be the group of individuals who continue the training for the new staff that comes on, continue providing PD for their teachers, and maybe even provide some professional development and support to local school districts that are neighboring to them. So we have them help out with the project in that way. And then the last is assessment support. So, in our state of Nebraska, we have a Nebraska Reading Improvements Act that's become state law that requires teachers and schools to assess students in their reading performance 3 times a year in kindergarten through 3rd grade. And so they use these assessments to identify students who need additional support, who may be falling behind, falling below cut scores that we have identified in reading to be successful. And so these students need individualized reading programs. And so our job is to, help the schools interpret those assessments, and then use that assessment information to drive instruction. So using really data-based decision making and informed instructional choices. So the history of this project is that it started as a Nebraska state grant to support Nebraska schools. So one of the things that happened is we, as Nebraska passed this Reading Improvements Act, one of the things that we noted was that a lot of schools might be unprepared to implement this reading law, and there was not a lot of funding available to support schools as they learn to implement the law. That means choosing effective assessment, having a good assessment strategy, and then developing strong instruction for schools. So this became a collaboration between the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, the Nebraska Department of Education, and a couple of individual school districts that that we started piloting some of this work with. Recently, we were just this year, we were awarded a grant from the Institute of Education Sciences for pandemic recovery, and that is to test the effectiveness of the WORDS program. This has allowed us to do a couple of things. One, we're expanding the scope of our project, and we're going to be able to work with many more schools and school districts across rural Nebraska. And then the other thing is that it allows us to sort of examine how effective this program is for improving reading instruction for kids. And that's important because especially when we're thinking about resources, how the state spends its money, and whether or not they want to put more effort towards programs like this for improving instruction for kids. We really need to know what the effectiveness of the project is. And so we sort of are testing the effectiveness, and we're going to do a cost analysis of the WORDS program to help the state make a decision about whether or not this is something that they would like to continue in the future to help their schools, especially schools in rural areas. The grant, in order to test the effectiveness of WORDS, we use 2 different types of designs. One is a regression discontinuity design. The other is propensity score matching quasi-experiment. And so both of these designs are used for a variety of reasons that I won't spend time on in this presentation, but these are, very sophisticated, evidence-based or experimental methodologies, and we use them. And what's really great about this is that our it's going to help us evaluate the program in a variety of ways, but also it provides our scholars opportunity to learn these methods and the skills for how to implement these types of designs, which hopefully they will be able to use to examine other interventions in the future, and to really sort of take on that leadership role of sort of examining evidence-based practices in the future. All right, so our research questions around WORDS are: we wanted to know what is the effectiveness of WORDS for accelerating reading improvement for students with and at risk for reading disabilities during the pandemic. We have research questions about what school or student level factors moderate the words program. And we want to know if these impacts are maintained over time. So we have a longitudinal component of the project, and it's a 4-year project. So we implement in the first 2 years and then examine longitudinal outcomes for those last 2 years. And then what are the impacts of words on reading skills for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities? Our state is particularly concerned with, learning loss during the pandemic for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities in particular. And so we wanted to know whether or not special education teachers find the words program to be appropriate for improving reading outcomes for those students as well. How do our doctoral students and our leadership grants fit in? Well, so our words project provides doctoral students opportunities to grow in several competencies. These include leadership, leadership in, providing leadership through working with teachers, working with both in-service teachers and new teachers, and also working with administrators. Collaboration among themselves, collaboration with teachers, collaboration with other institutions, and I'm going to have our students elaborate a little bit more on that, and then also how to conduct research. And so each of the students will sort of elaborate on some of their experiences in these areas and how this project is helping them integrate their skills.
Within this project, we as doctoral students have been given a very hands-on opportunity to use our classroom experiences to help bridge the divide between research and practice in the field of reading specifically. We each bring different classroom experiences to this project, which helps drive some of the important professional development details regarding the most important aspect of this project, the teachers in the classrooms. We travel all over the state to schools to meet the folks face to face. We learn about the school culture, the experiences of the teachers and their kids in their classrooms. We then help create the professional development modules with what we bring to the table as educators and researchers. For example, I was a gifted and talented and twice exceptional educator, and differentiation is of the utmost importance to me. So when we are designing the modules for teachers, I'm acutely aware of the differences between veteran and new teachers and how our PD must reflect the entire audience as best we can. We as former teachers know good and average PD, so we bring that awareness as we help to facilitate the research-based practices to classroom practices. We help bridge that divide for the teachers. As we get to know the schools and teachers, we're able to mesh our current research with their needs. For example, I've offered an intervention I created for older struggling readers to our colleagues across the state, as well as ideas for helping small rural schools work with their gifted and talented learners with extensive resources on a website available for all teachers. We get a real vision of what is needed in rural schools, which can help drive our future research interests in the field, whether it's literacy focus or, for me, helping gifted and talented rural learners. The professional development modules we help to create are in tandem with professionals across the state, as well as researchers from across the country. We're gaining valuable connections and learning from the best in our tandem fields as we help to tailor the modules to the schools we are visiting. All schools are using different curriculum, and we are also able to see the vast differences in curriculum if that is a research avenue we choose to pursue later in our careers as well. All in all, this project has really helped to inform our desire to help bridge that divide between research and practice. And I feel we are uniquely equipped to be change makers in this field because of these experiences we are helping to create within this project.
As Kristen pointed out, we as graduate students bring different experiences to the WORDS project. As we bring our variety of experiences to the table, we also recognize how important it is to collaborate among school staff and teams. I personally have experience working as a school psychologist. Although I don't have classroom instruction experience, I do have a lot of experience with data analysis. So as a doctoral student, I can bring my skills in data analysis to the table while also collaborating with our team members who have more instructional classroom experience. Recognizing that each team member brings vital roles to the project and the ability to collaborate as a team and with the schools is a great learning experience as a graduate student. It is also important that we build relationships and offer support to the stakeholders involved in the project. Offering support and consultation to teachers helps to build a trusting relationship to further build the project and prioritize the needs of students and staff. This consultation with school staff also builds experiences for graduate students in identifying the need specifically in reading skills and collaborating with the school staff to proactively meet the need through instruction and/or intervention. Physically spending time in these school buildings and classrooms brings an extra component to building relationships with the schools. Since the project is over multiple years, we also have the luxury to spend time with these teachers year after year building those relationships and driving the professional development to meet the needs of the schools. This unique approach will also help us to support teachers in rural communities that typically don't have as much support and resources as bigger school districts. Our ability to collaborate with stakeholders, including universities, State Department, and practitioners to build and divide between the research and practice. Overall, this project has helped build collaboration between WORDS, team members, and schools, bringing each of our own unique skills to the team while also learning and growing from one another is helpful in the success of the WORDS project and diving each of our own research career paths.
And lastly, the research competency. Every doc student knows that in the first couple years that you learn all of the statistics, all the methodology, and you ask yourself a very humble and sincere question: was all of this work worth it? And one of the things that Project Words has allowed the doctoral students to do is be able to assist in working on the research methodology, learning how to collect and analyze data for multiple schools, but maybe most importantly, understanding really kind of the dirtiness, if you will, the non-perfection of research, having to look at different adaptive issues and being able to have to problem solve with multiple team members to try to find solutions. The other piece about Project Words that is very beneficial is that it gives us a prime opportunity to take our research methodologies, take our statistical knowledge, and then make it translatable to people in the field. Because at the end of the day, those are the individuals that are impacting our students, and we are there to serve them in our leadership capacity. And so one of the responsibilities that is with the doctoral students here is to provide information to our teachers and to be part of the collaboration at the university and state level to be able to support our schools. Specifically, as an example, a few of the adaptive issues that we've had to face include having similar assessments so that we can have and use our RDD method to the best of its ability. And also the questions surrounding how do we capture and measure fidelity, not only in the sense of research, but also maybe more importantly, how can the fidelity data support the implementation of good science-based reading instruction with our teachers and our schools? When we think about the overall vision of Project Words, then, we essentially hope that this project proves to be a cost-efficient way to help educators teach reading and teach it well. The continued collaboration with stakeholders allows us to maximize our resources and makes us hopefully more efficient to be able to help our students and our teachers, our districts move forward. We also hope to improve professional development and be able to provide a reasonable, efficient way to be able to help our teachers learn material that's very relevant for the instruction of students, but also be beneficial for them. As what Kristen said earlier, we all know what average professional development looks like. We do not desire in this project to repeat that. We would like to set a new standard in that sense. And lastly, most importantly, this is designed to impact student achievement. We want to see kids in our state grow in their reading ability through the instruction and relationships of our teachers.
Okay, so just to wrap up, the purpose of professional development grants and leadership development grants is to train the next generation of leaders in special education. Our grant aims to develop leaders who can effectively train the next generation of teachers and special education teachers to work with students with special needs. We need to do this in order for them to effectively train those teachers. They need to be able to collaborate with stakeholders, including universities, state departments of education, practitioners, and really bridge that research to practice divide. And so that they can be the conduit that helps to be that bridge, and then conduct state-of-the-art research to measure effectiveness of these efforts. And so that's what we're aiming for our students to do. The grants provide an excellent opportunity for our scholars to develop and integrate these skills. So Project Words, it's funded by by grant, and it really allows our students to work on something that that is necessary, works to enhance our state and federal missions. And in this words project, as an example, is in the early implementation and testing phase, and so we don't have any data to show the effectiveness of this at this time. But we recognize that this is a good project, and we want to show it as an example of how we can help our students integrate their skills as we test this type of an intervention for teachers. And so we hope to provide more details on the words project over time. We'd love for you to look us up and ask us more questions about the project, and hopefully we have some good news to share as we get our results in from that experiment. And so thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today, and we hope that you have gotten some valuable information that can maybe help you think about your own projects.